Thank you to everyone who has chosen to join this presentation. My name is Kim Mitchell, and this brief slideshow will discuss the main outcome of my doctoral work that I completed in the fall of 2020. The title of my thesis was The Theoretical Construction and Measurement of Writing Self-Efficacy. Special shout out to my doctoral committee who joined me on this journey and who are listed here. The instrument development project began with a series of studies on writing self-efficacy that I completed as a Red River College faculty member before starting doctoral studies. The project culminated in the development of an instrument I call the SAUCES, the Situated Academic Writing Self-Efficacy Scale. Situated meaning contextually and socially influenced writing self-efficacy. Existing writing self-efficacy tools had focused on very surface features of writing, and in my years of teaching, I observed that students' sense of confidence was highly impacted by the context they were writing in. In nursing specifically, writing self-efficacy beliefs could be rooted in the belief some of them held that writing was not needed in a practice-focused discipline, so I sought to understand the roots of those beliefs through tool development. One of my first doctoral courses was Philosophy of Nursing Science, and one of the first acts I took in developing a tool to measure writing self-efficacy was to develop this model. The model seeks to explain the social nature of writing in 5 domains, those domains being the identity of the nurse writer at the core, creativity allowances, emotions and emotional control, relational aspects, and context. These factors were identified in the literature as those most likely to impact students' sense of confidence when they were writing in nursing programs. This model is intertwined, meaning that the 5 domains within interact and influence each other in a reciprocal fashion. The development of the items for the tool began with this model as well as Bandura's self-efficacy theory. The instrument development and validation was completed over 4 phases. First, as described, to establish the theoretical perspective and develop the items. Next, the revision of the questionnaire required 2 independent studies. A Delphi panel of experts reviewed the items first, then they were piloted with 20 nursing students using cognitive interviews. Cognitive interviews ask students to read each item out loud and then reflect on memories, experiences, and thoughts that are stimulated by the item. Cognitive interviews help instrument developers understand if the items are being interpreted in the way it intended. A secondary analysis was conducted on these cognitive interviews. The student experiences described were fascinating, and I encourage everyone viewing this presentation to also view my other presentation titled Revolutionizing Writing Pedagogy in Nursing Education, Moving from Staying in the Boundaries to Transformative Writing. That presentation incorporates the findings of the cognitive interview into a discussion about how to manage the writing context in nursing. After the instrument was developed and revised, it was ready for statistical testing. Study 1 used exploratory factor analysis and other validation methods in a sample of nursing students, and Study 2 conducted confirmatory multi-group factor analysis with an interdisciplinary group of graduate and undergraduate students. Our overall goal was a parsimonious questionnaire. We started with 41 items, which were reduced to 25 after the Delphi phase and 20 after the cognitive interviews. Many items were revised or rewritten in both these phases. These 20 items moved forward to the exploratory factor analysis study, and 4 items were removed after initial statistical testing. I'm going to spare you the vast majority of the statistical doldrums in this short presentation in favor of spending the remaining time on the tool itself and how I believe it can be used in the classroom and in research. This slide outlines the many reliability and validation procedures used in study number 1. So discriminant validity compared the questionnaire with 2 other writing self-efficacy questionnaires that each had slightly different assessment purposes, and those showed to have high correlations. Reliability testing using Cronbach's alpha was also performed, a parallel form analysis which asked a small portion of the sample to fill out both the electronic and paper versions of the tool, established the tool was also safe to use in paper form. And lastly, I built several structural equation models to examine how writing apprehension, nursing identity, and writing context predicted scores on the SAUCES. The strongest models showed writing apprehension and context support to be the most effective predictors. Writing apprehension is a well-established correlate of writing self-efficacy, and the context support item confirmed that if a student perceived the writing environment in the course they were taking as supportive, they reported higher writing self-efficacies. So teacher support does make a difference. So over the next 3 slides, I'll show you the SAUCES tool itself. I started with 5 subscales for the tool based on the model, and I was never committed to maintaining the model's 5 subscale format if the exploratory factor analysis showed it to be otherwise. And it turned out the tool had a better goodness of fit with 3 subscales, which I named Writing Essentials, Relational Reflective, and Creative Identity. On this slide, there are the writing essentials items. The 3 items covered some very core aspects of the writing experience. So ability to overcome difficulties, ability to choose the right kind of language to use when writing, and ability to take multiple sources and synthesize them into a new whole. The largest subscale, the relational reflective subscale, included 8 items that focused on audience awareness as both a writer and a reader of others' writing, ability to use feedback, and ability to reflect upon their own writing. The last subscale, creative identity, combined items originally in the creativity domain and the identity domain, which the model already showed to be very closely linked. And these items focused on whether the writer felt they were able to be creative at all while writing. Also ability to develop an independent voice and ability to successfully use language specific to nursing. To increase the generalizability of the scale, we then confirmed the 3-factor structure in a large sample of interdisciplinary undergraduate and graduate students. The analysis showed no statistically relevant differences between these student groups in how they responded to the items. This was good news, as the tool, even though designed for undergraduates, could also be used with graduate students. Next, I was able to compare how the nursing students responded to the items with how the interdisciplinary students responded, and here, some really interesting statistically significant disciplinary findings emerged about nursing writers. As shown in box 1, as might be expected, those who reported liking writing had the highest self-efficacy scores, and those who reported disliking writing had the lowest. Box 2 shows the mean scores on the subscales held the same rank pattern in the nursing undergraduate and graduate student populations. Students in all these subgroups gave themselves the highest scores on the writing essentials subscale and the lowest scores on the creative identity subscales. These patterns suggested the subscales could detect some developmental growth in writing ability in a population. Scored highest, the writing essentials items are writing tools needed to produce a successful representation of an academic paper. Next highest, with further development and contextual experience, students then learn to be relational and reflective. The most difficult to master is that sense of knowing when you are and are not allowed to be creative in your writing environment. Feeling confident about making the correct disciplinary language choices in your context of writing is also a huge challenge. Most concerning to me was that nursing students reported significantly higher rates of disliking writing and lower self-efficacy levels compared to the interdisciplinary groups. Why might this be? It could be related to who we attract into the nursing profession. It could be related to how students perceive the experience of writing in nursing programs. Regardless of the reason why, I find this finding particularly discomforting. I wish we produced more students who enjoyed writing. It would serve the academic, policy, and educational side of our profession well. Overall, I believe the tool has several uses, with use in research being only one of those. I mentioned briefly in the previous slide how it can detect developmental changes in a group of writers. However, the tool can also be used as a pedagogy, a teaching strategy in the classroom. To give an example of this, I was asked to conduct a workshop for incoming master's students at the university this fall, and I had them complete the questionnaire and write a reflection about the scores they gave themselves. Unlike the findings of the validation study, this very specific group of incoming master's students scored themselves much lower on the writing essentials subscale than the relational reflective subscale, which was backwards from my original findings. I ended up discerning from the reflections that this is a group of students that hadn't written a paper in a very long time, sometimes with up to a 10-year gap since their last piece of academic writing. Probably not an unusual state for incoming master's students in nursing who spend time practicing prior to graduate education. These students held their self-efficacy beliefs about their ability to enact the relational components of writing, but lost their confidence about implementing the essential skills of writing. Maybe this pattern emerged because they were anxious about starting a new program. Maybe because nursing is a reflective profession, it was easy to imagine being confident about reflecting. Regardless, it gave me direction in the workshop as to what I needed to talk to them about when it came to readapting to an academic writing context at the graduate level, and I found it to be a useful teaching strategy. I will conclude my discussion here, and thank you to everyone who took the time to view this presentation. I've added a QR code to this slide that will take you to an open access publication describing the tool development in detail and contains a complete reference list. You're also welcome to email me for more information. Also with much gratitude for the financial assistance I received for my doctoral studies and this research, and to Dr. Johnson Lee and Dr. Rashida Rabbani, who are named on the publication and audited the statistical methods. And finally, in acknowledgement of the 15 international scholars who sat on my expert Delphi panel.